Minister Dlodlo do in relation to your outstanding requirement to be compensated at level 16 for the period that you were acting cabinet spokesperson?
Chairperson, one of the first things that I did was to also raise that there were these matters that were outstanding, and she approved, and then I was compensated according to the Public Service Commission.
At paragraph 34, you refer to a request that you received from Minister Dlodlo in relation to Mr. Dipoko and Mr. Momeko. Could you tell us about that request?
When Minister Mtambi was transferred to the DPSA, she then wrote to the new minister, Minister Dlodlo, requesting that the two officials be transferred, Mr. Donald Dipoko and also Mr. Zweli Momeko, made a request that they be transferred. In fact, one was to be transferred and the other one was to be seconded with immediate effect, which I did the paperwork to get them to be transferred to the DPSA.
Ms. Williams, what I envisage to be, my penultimate and then my final question. At the bottom of page 9, you talk about the period of time for which you have acted as DG of GCIS. How long has that been?
I think when I was calculating, I even shocked myself also. It came to about 58 months acting. That was subtracting the period of Donald Dipoko. In total, in the 6 years, I have been acting for 58 months.
And 58 months is 6 years? Or what is it?
Slightly less because I excluded
my arithmetic.
Just over 4 years as I have it. 4.5?
Yeah, my arithmetic is bad.
Mine's very bad too, so I'm asking for confirmation from my learned colleagues. I think it's about 4.5 years.
That's
okay,
right.
all right, thank you.
Ms. Williams, over the page at page 10, you offer some concluding remarks in your statement. And you talk, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, about your commitment to public service. But you end at paragraph 39 in the last sentence with the following, and I quote, "As a result of the Minister Mutambi's behavior, an essential government institution that was built from 1998 was rendered dysfunctional." Ms. Williams, you'll recall in an engagement that I had with the chair earlier, I spoke about the insights that the experts who gave testimony on Friday provided to the Commission about the governance that is undermined within key institutions when state capture takes hold in a society. Could you please, with reference to that comment, give us a sense of the dysfunction that you believe occurred within GCIS during the period that you've testified about?
Chairperson, I indicated that we lost a lot of senior people, and she refused to fill those posts, resulting in people doubling up, people not doing certain things because they are short-staffed, and basically everybody was doing the bare minimum because if a section was meant to have 4 people and 3 are gone, virtually that one who's remaining will try wherever she is possible. It's just not going to work. And that's basically what was happening. If I can cite the example of the DDG of the section of media buying left. Mr. Dipoko, who was the media buyer, was elevated to being a DG. The remaining person was the director of media buying, who at the time was even new, and that whole section was almost dysfunctional. I should even mention that Minister Mtambi was quite even generous in giving people out to other sections. There was a chief director who was responsible for editing the Vukuzenzele that I spoke about. She almost like removed the person and he says, no, go and help in another department. And when we tried to say, Minister, this person is responsible for editing. And she says, no, it will happen. You see how you manage. And that's basically what she was doing, and completely rendering our provincial office in the Northwest, there was a vacancy. For a very long time, she never approved that that post be filled. That office also became dysfunctional. And I'm just citing a few, but there were quite a lot of them that just completely couldn't function because there were no people.
You say she refused to fill posts. That doesn't make sense to me if there was funding for those posts. Are you able to say anything to me? I would understand if you were saying she wanted to fill the posts maybe with certain people, but to refuse to fill posts at all if there was funding for the posts doesn't understand it. I don't understand it. Do you understand it? Is there anything you can tell me that can make me understand it?
Chairperson, I was saying that for me, she was almost like working against the state. There was no reason why you don't want to fill the posts. It is in your interest that the institution should function correctly. There is funding. However, they had this narrative of wanting to prove that this GCIS people who are there are useless. We need to find other people who can come in and deliver. Phumla is not delivering because she's not effective. So they were almost like wanting to render the institution completely dysfunctional and find reasons to say, you know what, this acting of Phumla is not doing it for us. Let's find somebody so that she can then crack and make the difference in the organization, because there is absolutely no reason. There was funding, there was established posts, but she just preferred that it must disintegrate until they then say this institution is dysfunctional. We need to get other people to come in. And that's my interpretation. She might be having a different one, but my view is that they were trying to push the narrative that the institution needs fresh people.
Well, it would be helpful if you are able to, if you were to make available information that shows what posts were vacant during her time and were not filled, and how long they remained vacant. Is that information that would be easy to get?
Certainly, it's easy. I will arrange it and we'll hand it on.
Thank you.
Chair, forgive me. Just a few matters. I'd like to follow up on one question in relation to your testimony, and then, Chair, I'd like to address you in relation to notices to implicated persons, following from the evidence of Ms. Williams. I do note that we are at the lunch break time. Would it be convenient to break now and return?
Well, it depends what's going to happen after lunch. If there is no witness lined up for after lunch, I think it would be more convenient to finish with her evidence. You talked to me about the notices to implicated persons, and we adjourn for lunch and then not come back. But if there is a witness lined up for after lunch, then we can take the lunch break and then come back.
Chair, as I have it, there's no witness lined up for after lunch, and so with your leave, I will proceed.
Yes, no, that's fine. And in the meantime, Mr. Pretorius is excused.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may just take a moment to confer with my colleague.
Thank you.
Chair, I've been reminded by my learned leader that the next witness is only scheduled for Thursday He will be the witness that I foreshadowed in some of my questioning of Ms. Williams from National Treasury, who will look at the payments from GCIS and other departments to
Yes.
TNA Media and Infinity. So as
Yes.
matters stand, and in the light of your directions this morning, there will be no witnesses until Thursday at this point.
Okay.
Then, Ms. Williams, just to follow up on your testimony just before this interaction about the dysfunction within GCIS as a consequence of what happened after you were removed from the Acting Director General post around 2014. You've made some references to media buying. You've testified about Mr. Dipoko, who came from that department, brought into GCIS, as I have your testimony by Mr. Manyi, and then elevated from the Chief Director position to Acting Director General in your position. But can you comment on what happened to media buying as an institution within GCIS during this period of turmoil in relation to its governance, as I understand your evidence?
Chairperson, during that time, the media buying was operating outside. You remember I said that it was removed from the branch that was called CSA, Communication Service Agency. It was a standalone. So what was happening at that time, because prior to during Mr. Manyi's time, this unit was reporting directly to the DG. So what happened is that a lot of activities that was happening in media buying, they were doing it directly with the Acting Director General, Mr. Dipoko.
Thank you. Chair, those conclude my questions for Ms. Williams. Insofar as notices to implicated persons are concerned, Ms. Williams' evidence has, her initial statement resulted in 3 notices to implicated persons being sent out by the Commission's legal team. Her evidence today has gone, in some respects, broader than her statement, and so, as a legal team, we will give consideration to whether further notices, whether supplementary notices to those who already received notices, or notices to new individuals need to be sent out in accordance with the rules. We just wanted to place it on record that that consideration will be given, and where the legal team deems it appropriate, those notices will be sent out.
I think that's important to make that announcement, because I was going to mention that to the extent that any persons may find that a witness who is giving evidence before this commission implicates them in circumstances where prior to that they have not been served with any notices, they must know that in due course they will be served with notices. So people mustn't think that we are allowing witnesses to come before the commission and just make all kinds of allegations against them without us notifying them. So what is happening is that where the commission's legal team is aware from a statement given by a witness that certain people are implicated, they make sure that those people are given notices thereof, excuse me, are given notices thereof ahead of that witness giving evidence. But what may happen is that when a witness is asked questions during his or her evidence, he or she may implicate other people who were not implicated in terms of the statement. And in that case, the Commission's legal team would take steps as soon as possible to notify those persons that they have been implicated. That is what you have just explained.
Indeed, Chair.
No, thank you very much. Ms. Williams, you said you are done with your questions.
I am indeed, Chair.
Ms. Williams, thank you very much for having availed yourself to come and